So in Baldur's Gate 3, nailing your team composition is a big deal. It can seriously impact how your adventure pans out. From dealing with tough enemies to solving tricky puzzles, the right team can make all the difference. Today I'm going to help you master the art of creating the perfect team. We'll explore some awesome team combinations of essential elements that can really boost your strategy. Whether you're swinging a sword, casting an epic spell, or you're using your wit to outsmart foes, I've got you covered. Just keep in mind, while I will be offering you options for a team composition, what's most important is having fun. You can be as efficient as you want, but if you're not having fun or interested in the class, then you probably won't enjoy the game. At the end of the day, you should play what is fun to you, but with that said, I will be giving you multiple options for each element of your team composition. Alright, let's begin. The first element of a team you should have is a support. The support class is the lifeblood of your team. They offer amazing spells that can enhance allies, debuff enemies, as well as offer a large array of utility to the team, and some can even do really good damage. Personally, I think the Bard is the class I most enjoyed in this role, and that's for a few reasons. The first being, as a support, the Bard has access to one of the largest range of support spells in the game. Whether you want to taunt a foe or heal an ally from a distance, the Bard has this and more built in. Now, I did just say heal from a range, and this brings me to my second reason for the Bard to be in this role. The Bard is one of the few classes that start with the spell called Healing Word at level 1. What this spell does is heal from a distance. A lot of players will be trying out the game for the first time, and honestly, having a ranged heal that could prevent you from dying is pretty powerful. When an ally goes down, you will need to get to them before they die. Now, having a range option like this is very powerful as it doesn't require you to get out of position, and that's pretty amazing. With that said, there are two other classes that excel very well at this role, and they both have access to Healing Word as a spell option, the Druid and the Cleric, but unlike the Bard, those classes are wisdom focused and the Bard is charisma. As you can imagine, a Bard who is a class that plays tunes for people will probably be pretty charismatic, right? And having a class with great charisma is a great option to have out of combat. Getting NPCs to do things you want is very powerful in itself, and having this charismatic edge is massive. With the wide range of spells, one of the best early game heal option, and having really good charisma built in, it's a no-brainer on picking the Bard for this role. Remember, the Druid as well as the Cleric are both amazing for this role, but they will bring slightly different sets of values to the team than the Bard. Nice, you have an amazing support based character, but now you want some damage, and in my opinion, I think it's healthy to have two forms of damage dealing. The first one I want to talk about is the AoE spellcaster. Wizards, sorcerers, and warlocks can easily fill these roles as they have access to powerful spells. Being able to set an entire area ablaze or freeze a couple of enemies is very strong in Baldur's Gate 3, and these classes are great at it. With that in mind, the Wizard has the most spells available to them, and personally when it comes to this role, I like the Wizard above all. The catch with the Wizard is that you have to be prepared for combat situations. The Wizard spellbook gives you the ability to pick and choose what spells you want for each situation, and while that will require a bit of understanding of the fights, I do feel like players will eventually understand how the flow of combat is, and the Wizard, in my opinion, have enough spells to be prepared for this. Now, while I am labeling the Wizard as an AoE juggernaut, I will say that the Wizard is more than just a DPS and does tend to get mislabeled. When you have access to an entire spellbook of spells, the Wizard can easily fit into the utility role. Now, this is not to say that the Sorcerer and the Warlock cannot be as good as the Wizard. Personally, I'm not a fan of the unpredictability of the Sorcerer. I know a lot of players enjoy that aspect, but that's not for me. And the Warlock does have some of the best casting in my opinion, with the overall strongest spells in the game, but the Wizard does have the most spells, allowing for the better options and adaptability in combat, and because of this, I like the Wizard in the role. Before we continue, I will be doing a giveaway of 2 copies of Baldur's Gate 3. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your favorite class, and that's about it. I will be announcing the winner in the community post on the 3rd, so keep an eye there. I really appreciate all the support on the channel lately, and I love giving back to the community and will continue to do so as the channel grows. Thank you again guys for the support, and let's continue. The second type of damage dealing class we want to look for is one that can generally frontline or get into the fray and deal really good damage while still being fairly survivable. There's quite a few classes that can do this, but for me, I love the Ranger in this role. The class is stacked. It has dex and strength saving throw proficiencies, can attack from range as well as do well in melee combat. And with his favorite enemy mechanic, if you're somewhat calculated, you can be extremely effective in fights. With that said, the fighter also offers tons of versatility in his playstyle and can spec for defense or range should you like to. The fighter does very well on the front lines and can even toss a few useful disabling spells should you become an Eldritch Knight. Ultimately, this role has quite a few contenders that can easily bring a lot of value to it, so just try a lot of them out. The Barbarian, the Monk, and quite a few others fit this role very well. Finally, we're on the last role that you really should consider having in your team, and that is a solid Frontliner. You want some class that can take some hits for the team. Your caster can't cast with enemies in their face, and while you may have a good Frontliner hybrid like the fighter helping you, eventually they will get worn down. Personally, I love the Paladin for this role as the class has all the armor pro efficiencies, shield pro efficiencies, and some of the best spells in the game like Bless and Command, and with Lay on Hands he brings some insane healing to the table. The Paladin feels like the ultimate Frontliner to me, but for you, you may have to try some other things that fits really well into your comp. I adore the Paladin, but options like the Barbarian can be like surprisingly tanky and offensive with not really needing any heavy armor investment should you choose to use a Barb. We talked about the fighter, you may have to build it a little bit more defensively, but again, an awesome option, and a class we mentioned very early, which was the Druid. When it's transformed, it can offer a great amount of tankiness while still having amazing support skill options. Again, try some things out, and as long as you have these roles, generally you should breeze through the game. Now, one final thing to note is, if you haven't noticed, the classes that I specifically chose bring a lot of other things to the table other than just the class. The Bard tend to be more charismatic than most, the Wizard's intellect is top tier, the Ranger is relatively agile and have amazing decks, and the Paladin's very strong frontliners with decent strength. Besides what they excel at in combat, they are great at other things that isn't necessarily combat related, and this is another element that you should take into consideration when you're building a team. Also, I did say the Bard was amazing at being charismatic, but should you fail your charisma, keep in mind the Bard could be in a dangerous situation since he is technically talking in the front lines. These are a lot of different elements you need to take into account, and if you get this right, you can build a really good solid team. When it comes to building a team, this is pretty much all you really need to know about making the best team comp. But remember, what's most important in my opinion is enjoying the time that you play. If you don't necessarily have the roles that were mentioned here, it's not the end of the world. You may struggle in some areas, you actually may not, but ultimately try to have fun because that's what you play Baldur's Gate and many other games for, right? Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below, and also tell me some of your favorite team comps. I imagine a lot of players, including myself, would like to know them because there may be something like juicy or really good. Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Later.